Hi everyone, today I'm speaking to Margareta Johansson, who is a professor at Lund University. She's a permafrost researcher. She's worked at the Abisko Research Station for 10 years and is going to talk to us today about her research and her work as a scientist. So good morning. Thank you for coming to talk to me today. And would you mind starting off by telling us a bit about why you decided to become a scientist?
Yeah, so first of all, when I started to study at the university, it was sort of, I need to do something. Why not start to study? And then I started to study physical geography and I really liked it. So then I took a master in that. But after taking a master, I didn't really think about a scientific career. But I was offered a job in Kiruna, half-time at the Tafala research station. I did glaciology, and this is glaciological research station. And then half-time at Abisko scientific research station, which I hadn't visited and I knew very little about. But of course, it was a job and I was excited, and I moved up from, moved 200 kilometers, no, 2,000, not 200, 2,000 kilometers from the southernmost part of Sweden to the northernmost part. And started to do my job there. So in 2000, I moved up to Kiruna and Abisko. And then I started to work with Terry Callaghan, my mentor, who turned out to be my dear friend as well, but he has been my mentor. And after working with him for 4 years at the research station as a research assistant in Abisko, then I sort of felt, this scientist thing might actually be quite fun, so why not start a PhD? So I took a break from my master's till I started my PhD of 4 years when I was working in Abisko and Kiruna, and then I decided to do a PhD.
It's interesting that you didn't just automatically know at the end of your degree straight into PhD. You actually had some experience as a researcher before following the career, which is probably the best way to do it because you like it at that point. So you're obviously influenced by Terry as your mentor. Did you ever consider another career, or were you just not really sure what you wanted to do after your degree?
I think I was not really sure what I wanted to do, and this just popped up. And then, of course, you seize opportunities, and new opportunities arise, and you embrace them as well. And it's, I mean, when I was younger, I never thought about being a scientist. I liked horses. I was working in a stable. That was sort of me. But you can always seize opportunities and just,
When you decided to do a PhD, what was your PhD on? Was that working at Abisko as well, or was that working somewhere else?
No, my PhD, I did my PhD on Lowland Permafrost in the Abisko region. So I started there, and then I was doing both monitoring, some manipulation, snow manipulation, as well as modeling. So I had different components of the PhD, but everything was based, the area was in Abisko.
And did that continue when you were doing did you do a postdoc? Do you have a postdoc position, or did you go straight into being a researcher? I'm not sure if things work the same in Sweden as they do in the UK.
No, I mean, there are many people that goes on and do a postdoc abroad or something like that. I had family, and then of course it's a bit more difficult to just move with kids and things like that. And I was offered a position immediately after my PhD to lead an assessment, an Arctic Council working group assessment. 2 chapters in this together with Terry. So then, of course, I immediately took that position as a researcher. So I have actually been working as a researcher at Lund University since I finished my PhD.
So you first visited Abisko before you actually started your PhD. When was that? Do you remember which?
Yes, I started to work in Abisko in 2000. So then I was working there full time until 2005 when I started my PhD, and then I was still an employee of the station until 2010 when the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences handed over the research station to the Polar Forskningssekretariatet.
Would you be able to tell me a bit more of the sort of scientific detail about the research you've done at Abisko? You know, you work with permafrost and vegetation interactions. So what are you actually looking for when you're doing your research? I imagine it might have changed over 10 years, but if you could just tell me a bit about the science of it, that'd be great.
Absolutely. So I'm looking at different things. So the first thing is sort of what is going on with the permafrost. And you mainly measure that by measuring two parameters. So one is the ground temperatures, and we have continuous temperature recording since 2008. And that was published together with temperature data from all over the world last year, which just concluded that permafrost is warming basically, and it has been in the Abisko area as well. The other thing that you're looking at when you're looking at what's going on with the permafrost is something called the active layer, which is this layer on top of the permafrost that thaws and refreezes on an annual basis. And this has actually been monitored from my department in Lund since 1978. Wow. So we have a very long time record that I have then been running since 2005. So I have been lucky to be allowed to join and adopt that long monitoring series, which clearly shows that when the measurements started, this active layer was round about maybe 50 centimeters or something like that, and now it's down to 80, 90 centimeters. So it has really increased, almost doubled in those 40 years that it has been monitored.
That's a pretty significant change.
Yes, it is. It is. Things are happening indeed. And also we have some of the Myers that was monitored in 78 that we are not monitoring anymore because there is no permafrost left.
Oh,
these were
completely gone.
It is completely gone. But these were Myers that were in the westernmost area, sort of towards the border of Norway. And that's where we have a lot of precipitation. As a result of this very much winter precipitation, the permafrost was very shallow from the start. So of course, if you need to thaw out 4 meters of permafrost, it can be a fairly quick process once it's started, compared to around Abisko, where we might have down to 30 meters of permafrost. So of course, it's a big difference. But we have some of the sites that we are no longer measuring because there is no permafrost. So that was sort of looking at what's going on with the permafrost. And then I have also been interested in what will happen with the permafrost in the future. So, and of course you can use both models, but you can also use manipulation experiments to look at what's going on in the future. And we have put up a snow fence experiment in 2005 when I started my PhD. To see what is happening with the permafrost and the vegetation when we have additional snow, because what was predicted for the future was that there will be more snow, not for a longer time period, but once there was snow, it could be thicker because we have warmer temperatures, and of course warmer air can hold more moisture and it can be more precipitation. So with that in mind, we thought, why not try to simulate what's going on in the future? So then we put up these snow fences 15 years ago, and I have just returned from Abisko, as you know, making the measurements of this, and it is a huge difference where we have put up the snow fences compared to where we have our control plots. So with additional snow, it will really mess up the permafrost, this active layer, which becomes it's down to if we say that the control plots are around about 70 centimeters, then we have 130 that on these manipulated plots. So it really, and of course, because of that, you might have some ice lenses in the ground, and these melt, and then the ground subsides, so you get those sort of subsided areas, which are water filled, of course, when you have snow melt and when it's raining and things like that. So. And of course, the water in turn is heating up, is speeding up even more. So it's sort of, once you get the ball rolling, then it's difficult to stop it. So it doesn't look that brilliant for the lowland permafrost in the future, I must say.
But could you explain a bit more about the snow fences and what are they doing? They're not a piece of equipment I've heard of before.
No. Sorry. I mean, of course, I'm just using snow fences as if everyone would immediately know what it is, but no. So snow fences, it's basically just 1 meter high plastic fences that we put up where we have a 10 by 10 meter. So the snow fences are 10 meters, and then we have a plot that is 10 meter in one direction and 10 meter in the other direction. And then we are recording what is going on when we add more snow in this plot. And then we have 6 of those, and we have 6 that is without the snow fence, just to make sure that what we see is related to that we actually add the snow and nothing else. So what the fences does is, of course, when you have wind and snow drift in the winter, then it makes the snow accumulate on both sides of the snow fence.
So you're ending up with more snow and seeing how that will affect things.
Yeah, so this is an area where there is a lot of, it's an open area, so there is quite a lot of wind. So if we, in normal cases, have maybe 15 centimeters, we add double of that. That's sort of the result of these snow fences, what they do on an average.
So as the permafrost melts, or you get this greater active layer, what kind of effect is that likely to have on climate change? Because that's what the station focuses on, climate change.
Of course. And if you look at the big picture, not only in Abisko, because Abisko is small, and of course things are happening there now, but it is relatively small areas that have got lowland permafrost. But if you look at the big picture, if you look at all of Arctic, for example, then of course what is usually discussed when you're talking about why we should care about thawing permafrost is, of course, that it's a lot of carbon stored. So these are the old leaves and other things that are just put in the freezer. So rather than being decomposed as they usually are, they're just put in the freezer and then lid on, and until you open the lid, and then it starts to be decomposed and emitted as greenhouse gases. So then, of course, you can have this feedback effect that you can have increased temperature that will then continue to thaw the permafrost, etc. So that is one thing. But then also on a larger scale, then of course all the infrastructure that is located in areas where you have permafrost, that is something. I mean, we had the oil spill last spring from Norilsk, wasn't it? I think it was Norilsk. I can't remember. But somewhere where there was this oil cistern that was sort of on unstable ground. And of course, if you have permafrost and it's heated, then you can have, if you have ice lenses in, and then you can have subsidence and some. Yeah, you just don't want some infrastructure to be disrupted like that. So yeah,
no, definitely how that's
and then of course there are very many other issues with the thawing permafrost, that it changed vegetation, hydrology, etc.
So you also look at the vegetation interactions. Does melting permafrost mean that that any plants in the area are going to change? Would they not live there anymore if they're adapted to the permafrost areas and that kind of thing? I'm a plant scientist, so I find that kind of stuff very interesting.
Yeah, to my knowledge, there are no species that can't be in other places. So I don't think that species will go extinct. But what we have seen is that dwarf shrubs lingonberry and whatever, have decreased a lot, and what is instead it's the grasses, like, it's like Eriophorum, the big, I don't know what that the grasses like, Eriophorum, they have really increased both in size, but the other species are still there, but they are not as dominant.
So it's definitely changing the biodiversity.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
The actual landscape itself changes. The things living there.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, if we look at ecosystem services, that are, of course, the berries are providing ecosystem services both for the animals, but also for the people living in the area. So there are implications.
It's definitely an interesting area to study, but concerning from the sound of things. Did you face many challenges with your research at Abisko? I know the station's permanent, and you've got a nice place to go back to, but you are still in an Arctic environment. Is that something that makes the research more difficult, or more you've got to work around things?
Yeah. So I think when you're doing research at the Abisko station, it is a luxury. I have been in the middle of the Greenland ice sheet. There are differences. I mean, the luxury with doing research in the Abisko area, I would say, is that you can drive there. I mean, you can come with the car, you can go to the nearest city, which is 100 kilometers away, and buy, if you have, some equipment that breaks down and things like that. So even though, of course, you have to be careful with planning your field work, and of course, when you're in the field, you have to be careful because you should not be on your own. All of those things that applies wherever you are. Of course, you have to be very careful, and especially if you are doing it in the winter time when it is very cold. But I think overall, Abisko is a luxury place to do research compared to many other sites in the Arctic, where you simply have to plan everything in detail. And I mean, you cannot have forgotten a screw because you just cannot access it, and you cannot send for it because it will come in a month's time when you are no longer there or whatever. So I think of course you're in the Arctic, but I would argue that because you have the facilities that you got at the research station, and you can, at least I have always had research in the nearby, so that I can come back in the evenings and have a nice meal and sleep in a nice bed and things like that. So then I think you can always then you, of course, you always have to wear whatever the weather tells you to wear and things like that, but if you had, it hasn't been a problem to adapt.
It's good to know, because I might be there in a few weeks. It's good to know that if I have forgotten anything, it's not the end of the world.
No, it really isn't, it is very reassuring, I think. And also that you can get on the train and go to Kiruna every day and buy whatever you need, because you got all the stores that you need to survive in the wilderness in Kiruna. So no, I think it's very convenient.
What's your favorite memory of being at Abisko? It doesn't have to be the science, could be anything.
Many. I don't know how to be able to pick one, actually. No, I think what I really appreciated, because I also had the pleasure of living up there permanently for 5 years, it is when you drive along the road and you come where you see Njola, which is the mountain behind Abisko, sort of the big mountain, and that just sort of, I don't know, every time I come there, it's just, it's such a nice feeling. It is coming home, and I really appreciate it. So I just love the place, full stop. I cannot, there are so many nice moments I have had there as a researcher and as an employee of the station and everything. But I think just the area and the place, I just love it.
That's a lovely thing for the favorite memory to be the feeling of coming home. I think that's amazing. So kind of the final question that I've prepared is, do you have any advice that you would want to give to someone who's considering becoming a scientist, they're thinking about their career, or they're early in their career? You know, if you could tell yourself back when you were younger a piece of advice, what would it be?
Well, the first one is, of course, do something you find interesting, because you will spend so much time doing it, so you really have to like it. And then secondly, I would say get involved. If you have the possibility to get involved in some, there are quite many. There are, for example, the Association of Polar Early Career Scientists, if you're interested in Arctic research, but there might be other similar for other areas. But get involved, because it is really nice to have a network of colleagues that then turns out to be the network of friends everywhere. And many of them you just continue to meet 20 years later as well. So it is really important to if you can get involved in networks, start to do that. And then the last and most important thing is to find yourself a mentor. I was very lucky to have Terry Callaghan, who provided me with a lot of opportunities to join different assessments and things like that. And because of that, I also made this huge network. I learned so much. And yeah, it is just to find yourself a nice mentor that can provide opportunities. And then, of course, it's up to each person to actually use the opportunities. You have to show that you can take them. But it is nice to have someone that can provide the opportunities. It makes all the difference, I would say.
That sounds like some really good advice. Thank you.
I don't know. They are my few cents.
Just before we stop, is there anything else that you would like to talk about that you feel like we've not covered? Anything that you'd want to mention?
No, I was just thinking maybe that today my main role is to be the coordinator of Interact.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'd definitely like to hear more about that.
Yes. No, so I mean, nowadays, being a scientist is my very, very small part of my job. So most of the time I'm spending on being coordinator of this network of 88 research stations all over the Arctic. And Abisko station is one of them. But we have an EU project that has been funded 3 times, called Interact from the EU. And the first phase of Interact was coordinated by Terry. And then I took over as a coordinator for Interact 2 and Interact 3, that is both running in parallel now. So at the moment we have quite much to do, but it will be another year and then we will only have Interact 3, which is brilliant. But it is a network that enables us to send scientists to the field, for example, through something called transnational access. So we now have a call out for scientists to apply to go to research station for next summer, including going to Abisko. And so far we have sent a little more than 1,000 scientists to the field. So
wow, that's a lot of people.
It is a lot of people, and of course a lot of science coming out of it, and that is what is the important part. And people have been going to all Arctic countries, so we are very pleased that both East and West, doesn't matter, but everything is now open for scientists, which is brilliant. And also, I mean, we are working on safety for people when they go to the field to make sure that they're actually safe, and how can the research station themselves reduce their environmental footprint, because many of the research stations are located in the middle of nowhere. So the biggest impact on the environment there is actually the research station itself. And then, of course, we have to make sure, or at least are working towards, minimizing that impact from the research station. So there are many things that we are working on, which is really exciting. And yep, that is what I'm spending most of my time on at the moment. But I'm lucky to keep my field work in Abisko and my research going as well.
That does sound like a very big job. 88 stations and thousands of people. And I'm impressed you can also research at the same time. That sounds like a lot of work.
It is fun, luckily. And also, I mean, in Interact, I'm working with brilliant people we have a daily management group, which is sort of we who are doing the day-to-day decisions and things like that. And they are from Denmark, from Finland, from UK, and from Sweden and Italy, sorry. And they are all doing a brilliant job. So it's not me, it's a good team, and then we can do a lot of things. So it's lovely.
That's I've gone through all of my questions. So unless you have anything else to add, I just want to say thank you so much for talking to me this morning. It's been really interesting to learn about your work and to find out about how you have gone through your career, because you didn't just straight away know what you were doing. And I think that's a good thing for people to hear, because I think sometimes there's a bit of pressure to like know exactly what you want to do right from the start. It's good to know that you don't have to. You can
no.
find your path as you go.
Yeah, that's it. Just grab opportunities.